Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
All right, we took a little bit of a week break. I want to apologize to all the listeners for that. That was my fault. It was too hectic. My wife and I, we just moved into a house. And that was last week. At the end of the week was like the move in, get everything ready to go so we could actually start living in it. And I didn't have the capacity for it. Blake was ready to go. He could have gone on his own. So I guess you could give him a little bit of blame for that one, but it was mostly my fault. The upside though is that I have my original setup now. So, fingers crossed that the mic and everything is all coming through okay. Cause now I'm just back to my usual, just in a new location.
Yeah, no, it's not. It was a Memorial Day weekend, Memorial Day week. So hope everyone had a good Memorial Day. Hope some time out in the sun. I feel like it wasn't that nice in the Metro Detroit area. So hopefully.
Yeah, wasn't it like 60s or something like that?
Yeah, some rain, but I got to, because it wasn't super hot, I got to take my little guy to his first Tigers game. So that was fun. But yeah, other than that, hope everyone's doing well. Wes, congratulations again on the new place. I know we've talked about it a bunch off air, but moving's such a process. So happy you're finally in there. I'm sure it's a huge weight off the shoulders.
It is. Yeah, moving from an apartment to a house was so much easier because we had so much less stuff.
Yeah.
Now, we're moving an entire house to an entirely different house, and it's just finding space for all the junk that I didn't even know we had some of this stuff, but it's important anyway, so we got to keep it. But I want to ask you a grilling question, okay? Because we didn't get to do this last week. So how much do you grill? I guess I should open up with that.
A decent amount, actually. Like, funny, not funny story. Like, the igniter on my grill is like out of order right now, so I've kind of not been grilling as much because of that. It was actually me and my wife's anniversary the other day, and we always just like buy steaks and like grill and whatever. And I told her, I was like, hey, yeah, like if we got fillets, and apparently the best way to make them is like on the cast iron skillet, and then you bake them. And she was giving me a little bit of crap because she like wanted them to be grilled. And I was like, no, this is the way to do it. So long story short, I do grill, just I'm on a little bit of a infrequent pattern right now.
Well, my question then is, what is like the food you are most confident grilling? Like if I asked you to prepare me on the grill the best meal that you can. Yeah, YouTube user says best money ever spent was paying movers. We had movers. It was all the afterwards that had really taken up a lot of my time and weekend. And we're still not done. So you guys know how it all goes. But okay, yeah. Best meal that you think you could prep on the grill.
You know what? I think I'm going to go, and I feel like I'm going with something fairly easy here, but some sort of maybe like grilled chicken, or maybe like a chicken kebab, or like a shrimp kebab, something like that. Just because like I grill burgers and steaks and stuff, but I feel like, especially if it's like a good like cut of meat or something, I'm like worried. I get like nervous about it that I'm not going to do it right, and it never turns out right. So safely, I'll go with like some sort of kebab, which is always one of my favorite things on a grill, honestly.
See, you're a hell of a lot better than I am. I was immediately thinking like bratwurst or something, because you could boil them a little bit beforehand and then just finish them on. I
was thinking hot dogs.
Yeah, see, hot dogs. That's that. Although my wife likes them burnt. I don't know if I can. How do you like your hot dog?
Not burnt.
Yeah, okay.
Not burnt. I like a grilled hot dog, but not burnt.
Yeah, you just want to see the lines on there, and then you call it a day. She wants it like blackened almost. I can't. But anyway, yeah, chicken or like a fillet or something is. I feel like I'd just either over or undercook it, and there's no shot for me to hit it right.
Yeah. The tough thing with like if it with a fillet because it's so thick. Like it's tough to get it cooked and just like get it the right. It was actually like kind of easy how I did it on the cast iron and then like threw it in the oven. It turned out pretty nice. So I think that might be my go-to. But if it's like a New York strip or something, like I might put that on the grill, just like a little bit thicker stuff. I feel like I can never get it just right.
All right, so now this has got me thinking a little bit. A couple years ago, I tried this. It wasn't too bad. Have you ever had a grilled watermelon slice?
I have not, but I've heard of it. Is it
It's
good?
actually pretty good. Yeah,
Okay.
so you can't do it on too long, obviously, because
Yeah.
you'll ruin it. But you just kind of like get a thin caramelized layer on
Okay.
the outside, and it's actually really good with the sweet and the, I don't know, grill flavor,
Hmm.
because it's not smoky, it's something else, but I was surprised, but it is very good. You should try it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the what I have had similar is just like grilled pineapple before, like things like that. So that's solid. I have heard of that, haven't tried it. I'll definitely have to do that at some point when I get my
I was just
grill.
trying to think of like the weirdest things that I've grilled before, like
Yeah.
I've done a bison steak. That was pretty good.
Okay.
That was a New York strip and it turned out pretty well. It's a pretty short list though.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And like my father-in-law will grill year round, like shovel a path to his grill on
Oh,
the
jeez,
deck.
I could
And
never.
yeah, I'm not that person. Like I like grilling when it gets warm out and everything. But yeah, there are some people who are just like grilling every day, no matter what it is. And maybe I'll turn into that one day, but right now I just can't do it.
See, I just don't have the talent to justify that. I think that's the problem. Well,
Same.
I suppose with grilling or with cooking in general, it's practice. Like I could
It
invest the
is.
time to eventually become good at it. I haven't yet though, and so I cannot justify going out in like 20-degree weather to grill up some really poorly grilled chicken.
Oh yeah, it is practice though. Like what I mentioned, we get fillets for our anniversary. This was our third anniversary, and I think like every year the fillet is getting a little bit better. So eventually we'll be in like a really good spot.
That's the way to do an anniversary dinner, too.
Yeah,
We're about to get to Pistons, but I'm just thinking like the money you save by just going fillets and some wine instead of a
yeah,
nice dinner out or something. That's nice. That's the way to
yeah.
go.
No, it's nice, and you can do whatever you want and have a really good dinner. I know it's not someone cooking for you and serving you, but it's nice.
Well, that concludes our Memorial Day segment. A week
Are way
late,
way
might
too
I?
late. It's still May though, at
It
least.
is still May. It is still May. Yeah, the big Memorial Day thing that I did was just watch the Indianapolis 500. That was very fun.
There you
And
go.
then the winner ended up going to the Pacers game, but it was game
Yep.
3 and they lost. Kind of a bummer for him. But actually, the driver, he went to New York on his big old media tour right the week after. Went to the NBA shop right downtown in New York, bought a Halliburton jersey,
Oh,
and was
good for
wearing it
him.
around, which is
Man.
bold to do in the Mecca.
Yeah, I was in New York for work a few weeks ago and I wanted to go to the NBA shop, but it was just like where my siblings both live in New York, so I was like meeting up with them and had like work stuff. And the NBA store was like a little bit of a ways away, so I never fit it in. I still need to go there. That'd be so fun.
Yeah, gosh, I think I was there once, but it was like 10 years ago at this
Yeah.
point. So I don't remember it all that well. I don't have a good transition here, Blake. Oh, you want to give it a stab? We're gonna go to a Dennis Schroder question. And like I
There
can't think of anything. Can you get one?
Well, I was gonna say like 10 years ago at the NBA store, like there's probably more Pistons stuff that now than there was back then where the team was,
There you
but
go.
you probably still wouldn't find a Dennis Schroder jersey. So
But maybe you could find a Jaden Ivey jersey, which is
there you
part
go.
of the question. So this is Sports and All Two on the DBB comment says, should the Pistons keep Dennis Schroder with Jaden Ivey coming back from injury? There's actually quite a bit more baked into this. So we were on the character limit. We weren't able to get all of it. But but the gist of it was essentially just that obviously Jaden Ivey's coming back. There are a lot of players that Pistons fans want to have the ball in their hands, including Jaden Ivey. But you've got Cade. Some people want to see Durant with the ball a little bit more, Asar Thompson as well. So with all of that, does it make sense to really prioritize Dennis Schroder returning here the next season?
You know what? I think it depends on how the Pistons choose to use their cap space. And I think this is the first time we've recorded since Cade was officially named third team All-NBA. So shout out to him. Obviously well-deserved. Probably should have been second team, but that's a different conversation. But with his like deal going up a little bit, meeting that incentive, the Pistons will have some decisions to make, and one of those being Jaden Ivey, whether he's going to get an extension or not, and Dennis Schroder is a free agent along with Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley. So what are you going to do? Schroeder's contract, he was making 13 last year. I think it'll be his like amount will be less than that. And like, will the Pistons be an over the cap team? Will Schroder sign for a little bit above the minimum, whatever that amounts to? I think if they could keep him, even with Ivy coming back, I think it would be well worth it. When Ivy was playing before he went down with injury, I thought it was a good situation for him. I mean, ups and downs, obviously, but having that time to play next to Cade and then also like running things a bit himself in the second unit, I think even with Schroder, like you don't really lose that all too much. Like I think watching the Pistons over the past few years, including this past overachieving season, just having guys who can handle the ball, not turn it over, has been a challenge at times. And I think Schroder addresses that, even if he doesn't give you that much like scoring wise, like, you know, he can make a big shot or two when you need him to. We saw him do that at times over the season and even into the playoffs. So I think if the price is right, like that would be huge, even if it's just a 1-year deal. Like I think the max he'd probably get is like a 2-year deal at this point in his career. But yeah, I don't think like even with Ivy's return, I don't think that would automatically put Schroder out of the rotation. And I think he's a valuable piece. If not Schroder, I would be surprised if another backup point guard, or if he ends up being your third point guard, like I think that would still be on the table, even if it was just like a different name, because that's just a need the team has, I think.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, if of these veterans, I think that of the three, right, Schroder, Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., I would be over the moon excited if they could somehow keep Beasley and Schroder. Okay, and then if THJ has to move on, or maybe you could get him for a minimum contract or something. I don't know, right? I don't know, but like look at what OKC has done this year, and everyone focuses on their defense, rightfully so. They're a really good defensive team, but like count the guys that get minutes for Oklahoma City that cannot dribble, pass, shoot. You can't have enough of these guys that you could put the ball in their hands and they can do something with it. So like I don't understand this instinct to like try to limit that number. Cade needs the ball a lot. Yeah, absolutely. He does. He's the guy that you want like running the show and setting things up for himself and for everyone else. Jaden Ivey needs the ball like Donovan Mitchell needs the ball. Right? Donovan Mitchell's not the point guard for the Cavs. He'll bring it up occasionally, but he's not the setup guy. You get Donovan Mitchell the ball, and then he goes and makes a play. Sometimes it's for others. Most of the time it's for himself. I'm not comparing, Jaden Ivey to Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell's a much better scorer, I think, than Jaden Ivey is, at least right now. I guess, who knows in the future. But the point is just Ivey still needs a setup guy. So if you basically have him play an expanded version of the role that he plays next to Cade, next to Dennis Schroder, it works really well. Like just increase the amount of times that Jaden Ivey gets to bring up the ball. But when you need somebody to truly set up the offense and get him in a position where you're comfortable giving him the ball and kind of letting him go to work, well, that's Dennis Schroder. And he can shoot it. I know that percentage wasn't as high as we would have liked to see in the regular season, but he's got pretty good history there and being in the low to mid 30s. So I'd expect that would be where he would be long term. He can't be that expensive. Like I'd be a little surprised if he's getting 13 again.
Yeah.
Maybe it's closer to 10 or a little bit lower. I think the price is right. The role is there. The question is just whether he's okay getting maybe 12 to 15 minutes a night instead of what he was near the end of last season. Because with Schroder, when Ivy's coming back, I think the real change is just that he no longer gets those minutes next to Cade, right? He's purely backup for Cade. So however many minutes Cade is playing, subtract that out of 48, and that's all that Schroeder's going to get. So maybe that's 12 minutes a night if he's at 36. Is he okay with that? If he is, then great. I'd really want to keep him. If he's not, then I still would like to go find a backup point guard who is.
Yeah, and I think like just with him being okay with it, like next season Schroeder's going to be 32. Like I think he's getting to that point in his career where and I mean, he maybe already he was in a bunch of different situations last year. Like all of them were a little bit different, asked to do different things. But I think coming into Detroit, like he seemed to be, I don't really have much to like back it up, but he seemed pretty good with his role there. And I think the Pistons, like the good thing about the season that they've had, and it could pigeonhole you with like the contracts you give out and everything, but like players are going to want to like come here and play with Cade. And it seems like, especially the guys that you already had on the roster, and Schroeder seems to be one of them, but like we know how much Malik Beasley has said that he loves being here. He didn't want to be traded, all that. I know he has some like connections to the city, but it seems like it's a little bit more like it's a little bit of everything from the roster, the locker room, the coaching staff, the facilities that the Pistons have. Like, I feel like it's a good situation, and guys like Schroeder at that point in their career are going to want to compete. So like, which is crazy to say this about the Pistons now, but like it's a better situation if you want to like win and being like play competitive basketball compared to like a Charlotte or Washington, if he can make more money there or wherever it might be. Like, not saying the Pistons are necessarily championship contenders yet, but like unless he really wants to go win a championship, like I could see him just like taking a little bit of a lesser deal to come back here.
Yeah, the Pistons are in kind of a fun middle ground from a veteran player perspective, because you're right, like they're not bad enough where Dennis Schroeder is going to be your starting point guard, right? Like he was their first stretch in Brooklyn, but they're also not so good that he's not going to play, right? Like I think if you go to most true contending teams, I'm not confident that there's a role every time for a guy like Dennis Schroeder. But in Detroit, you can compete, and he would get maybe 10 to 12 minutes a game. That's pretty good, right? If you're going to get onto one of the smaller contracts and just be a more of a role player off the bench. He does have a connection there with Malik Beasley, so maybe those two could, want to be kind of like a package, or not necessarily, but it would be a selling point if you get one to bring back the other. I don't know. I'm just worried about taking too much of a step back talent-wise just because we think maybe Jaden Ivey should be the backup point guard. Like I think that's just a little bit of a bridge too far. I know he was doing that at the start of last season, but I mean, how often did we have that conversation of, maybe they could use a true backup point guard just to take the pressure off of Jaden Ivey when Cade's on the bench? Like, just give him another guy who can handle the ball. So if he's getting trapped really hard in pick and roll, or if he's getting pressured in the backcourt, you have an outlet, because that's not necessarily Jaden Ivey's strong suit at this point. And I mean, we just saw it in year 3. So is it going to become one? I don't know. So I just really think that extra ball handler is really important. Like YouTube user says 3 ball handlers is a must for every team. At a minimum, 3 ball handlers, true ball handlers, guys you could give the ball to and they can go make a play for themselves and others. That is the minimum. That's Jaden Ivey. That's Cade Cunningham. It would be great to keep Dennis Schroder to be number 3 because I'm not convinced Asar really is a 4th here. Like I don't know who they have beyond this. Marcus Sasser maybe, but he's not.
I mean, if you want to
get rid of Schroder, he's not playing.
The growth of like Ron Holland, but like I don't think Ron is there yet either. Like I think you need these like,
and if Ron takes a step, it's most likely as like half court scoring.
Yeah,
right?
like do you even want?
You're going to get Ron Holland pick and roll reps and see what he could do. Like maybe, but that's a leap.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think, and Ron, like we saw it his rookie season, one of his faults coming in the draft, turning the ball over. I think just like guys like Schroder, even if it's another veteran point guard, like the Pistons to me now are it's a little different, but it's like a similar pitch to what like Chris Paul got when he joined the Spurs last season. Like you want to join this up and coming team. And I think Schroeder is competing at a high level for his age. Like it's not like the best comparison, but it's something like I can see, and YouTube user brings it up. Like the only team that can really outbid the Pistons is the Nets because of the room that they have, and the Pistons have his early bird right. So I think it would be worth it to bring Schroeder back, and I don't think the team in general is necessarily in a position to like just go away from players like that because of what they're young. Like you just need a talented roster. Like we saw that when you compare last season to the season before to compete in this league. So I'm kind of thinking that Schroeder will be back even when you think about Jaden Ivey's return. Could something else happen? Yeah, but it just seems like a good fit to me.
All right, this actually flows pretty well into this question here from KCP for 3. It says, is there a scenario where the team is actually worse next season? And if so, what do we do to fix it?
Man, this is a good question. And shout out to KCP for 3. Hope you're doing well. I mean, I think there's like definitely a scenario because of how well they did this season. Like they won 44 games. And I mean, could they win more than that? Could they win less than that? Yes. But overall, I think really like if they're worse next season, I think the most likely reason for that is like Cade isn't performing at the level that he did this year. Like coming into next season, I think there's going to be discussions about him being a top 10. I think he's kind of in that like top 15 players in the league. Like he made all NBA, and yes, there were some injuries, some guys that weren't eligible, but like when you have a guy like that, I think your success will really just like coincide with their performance, their like steps that they're taking to grow their game and everything. And like Cade is still on an upward trajectory. So I'm not like, I would never like doubt the guy at this point, honestly, because of everything he's shown us throughout his whole career. So overall, I think if they're worse, the main, like my gut answer is it's Cade taking a step back, which I really don't see at all. The only other thing I could see is like, say you don't bring back Beasley and like you have some shooting concerns that we had in seasons before, because Beasley like could have made the most threes in the NBA if Ant Edwards didn't take like 20 threes in his last game of the regular season. So when you don't have a guy like that for his performance on the floor, as well as like everything we know he did in the locker room, I think you have to address that. Like what he gave this team is it's it's not irreplaceable, but it's like was so necessary for the steps that they took. So overall, I think it'll be tough to like win 45 or more games, but like I think they should be able to, honestly. And everything that's sticking out to me as like a reason they would be worse, like isn't likely in my head.
Here's my fear, because I'm glad you brought up Beasley, because I want to actually focus on the veterans here. It looks like it makes a lot of sense for the Pistons to not do a big splash this offseason, right? I mean, we've talked about that at length already. We're going to continue talking about that as we get into the draft, free agency, all that offseason stuff. But it doesn't really look like the Pistons are in a smart position to go take a home run swing or anything like that. Maybe they can improve a starting spot. Maybe they can only improve a couple of bench spots. But regardless, that's kind of where they're at. So it looks like we're heading towards a mostly quiet offseason, right? So if that's the case, if that's where we're going, well, then you're really focusing on young guys taking steps forward. We've already got Cade Cunningham at an all NBA level. That's awesome. That's bankable. I'm with you. I don't see him getting worse. Maybe he doesn't take another step, but even so, you've still got this incredible talent right now. So your focus is on Ivy, Asar, Durant, Ron Holland, maybe a little bit of Isaiah Stewart if he can continue improving as a defender. So let's just say all of that is positive. All those guys take reasonable steps forward as players coming into next season. I am really worried that the bench guys that this team could stand to lose this offseason, being Schroder, Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., that the loss of what those guys brought to this team is more than offsetting whatever gains we're going to see out of Ivy or Asar Thompson or Jalen Durant. Like, I think that the worst case scenario for this roster going into next season is that you lose Beasley, who was one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA last season and was a core emotional locker room piece. You lose Dennis Schroder, who is a very good backup point guard. And maybe you even lose Tim Hardaway Jr., who was kind of a punching bag of sorts at times this season, but very good movement shooter, played an important role in the locker room as a leader as well. So all you've got left then is Tobias Harris. And you'll probably end up replacing those guys, but with just lesser talents and maybe not as great of a locker room fit. So I'm worried because the step forward of the young guys needs to be coming from the same baseline of talent that the roster's at currently. And if that's not the case, then there's a scenario where all these guys take a step forward, but they're still worse because of what they lost. So that's why I'm, to our first question, that's why I'm so in on the idea of maintaining Dennis Schroder and finding a way to bring back Malik Beasley. Because if you could keep that threshold of this roster, the talent where it mostly is right now, saving for maybe one guy, either Schroder or Tim Hardaway Jr., like I think Beasley's pretty essential, then okay, when Asar Thompson takes a step forward, then you can get an excess of what you drop back on. But if you're losing all three of those guys, I think there's a world where even with forward progression, it doesn't look as good.
Yeah, and I mean, worst case scenario, if you lose those players, like, to me, it's like what are they being replaced with? Because I don't see this front office just, maybe not necessarily letting them all walk is the right word, but if they're not here, there are moves to be made. There are needs that will need to be addressed. I highly doubt Langdon will just say, like, okay, we lost Beasley, we lost Schroder. I doubt they're going to lose all three, honestly. But if they do, like, I don't think the front office is going to say, okay, we're good with what we have. We're banking on our young players, maybe someone who is out of the rotation, taking a step and like filling a need. Like, you're going to have to go and get talent elsewhere, whether it's free agency or via trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think outside of that, I'm not too worried about this team being worse. In fact, my only goal for this offseason is just to set them up to not take a step back next year. Like if we're going to do this quiet offseason thing, which is fine, let's do it, but just keep the level of talent on the roster more or less the same as it is currently right now that they ended last season with, so that when Asar Thompson does take a step forward, awesome. If Ron Holland takes a really big leap in his second year and makes a push to like maybe have an argument as a starter instead of Tobias Harris, like fantastic, right? You've still got the talent, but now the young guys just elevated the ceiling all that much higher, but the floor is still the same. I don't want to go below the floor. I don't want to step back. We understand obviously that progression's not linear, right? So maybe next year they're the 6th seed again, or they're the 7th seed, but with like a similar record, plus minus 3 wins, right? That's fine. I'm cool with that, but just don't be a 30-win team or something like that, right? Keep the floor where it is and see if we could push above it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it is a lot of pressure. There's obviously going to be a lot more expectations for this team than they had going into the season before. But I mean, if the roster talent wise is at a similar spot, I don't see a reason that it should fall off a cliff or anything. Like, even if Tobias Harris is in the second year of his deal, even if he like takes a step back, I think there have been other solutions to like getting his production, and hopefully like Asar Thompson takes a step and like he can take those minutes. But overall, I think it's just a talent thing. Like, if the roster is at a similar level than they were last year, they shouldn't be worse. And yeah, like, I'm with you. By worse, I mean like 5 to 10 less wins. Like it'll be hard. It's hard for any team to go like above 500, win 50 games or whatever you want to put it at. But I think they've shown that they can compete with this whole conference, really. So as long as like, I feel like we might need to come back to this question once we have a sense of like where we're going with the off season. Like, we probably do a lot of things just like wait and see right now, but I don't think the front office is going to put the team in a perspective where they should take any sort of dive next season. Like, it's not the time to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get into another question here about those veterans, but this is ABW17 in the DBB comments says, which of these options is the best? Retain the bird rights for all of Dennis Schroder, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Malik Beasley, and then sign Beasley to the non-taxpayer MLE, or go the cap space route. So 2 options with the cap space route, which would be, by the way, just completely renouncing all 3 of the rights to those guys. Pistons Pulse just did a cap breakdown with Keith Smith. So if you guys want more detail on how all of that works out from the expert himself, please go ahead and listen to that. But cap space route, signing Nickeil Alexander-Walker to a relatively big deal. I think the suggestion was right around $70 million. And the second option would be Santi Aldama from Memphis on a similar contract. So which of these would you prefer?
I mean, like, I think I'm just going to have to stick with retaining the guys that were on this roster. I know it kind of just like eats up your cap space, and I know we want to, like, you would need cap space to go and sign a Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Aldama, but like, I love both of those players on this team, but I don't know if I'm necessarily doing it at the expense of 3 guys who have all played a key role on this team last season. And like, even we can like leave it at, if you go and sign Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like that takes Beasley out of the equation. Like, you can't sign him. Like, it would almost, like, I would rather have Beasley personally. I know there's an argument to be had on if a player like Alexander Walker could be a replacement, and he's a higher level defender than Beasley is. But again, like Beasley was one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. So I'm going with the depth here and keeping the guys in house. And I think it leaves the door open for some trades, honestly, too, if that's a way to acquire another player. Because honestly, the free agent market isn't great this year. Not really any teams have cap space. So I would stick with just like retaining the guys, getting Beasley at the non-taxpayer mid-level, and going about it that way. Then maybe there's a way to improve the roster down the road via trade.
Yeah, I would choose that one as well, because I also think that the non-taxpayer mid-level exception is a pretty good deal for Malik Beasley. It's just looking now, it's like at 14. About 14. Yeah, which that might be low for Malik Beasley. That would be my worry here. Is he actually willing to accept that? Does he think he could push up closer to 16, 17, 18, right, for like a shorter 2-3 year contract, just given his age and the production that he had last season? But if he's willing to take that mid-level exception at around 14, I think that is awesome. So that would be my preference there, because it also then opens up the opportunity to, like, you know, if there's a team that really wants to get rid of a contract they don't like, and that, you know, let's say that there's a team that wants to tank, right? Well, they want to not necessarily tank, but be bad next year. So maybe a team like Utah or something, and they've got a contract in the $20 to $30 million range that has multiple years left on it that they want to get off of. Well, could you sign and trade Tim Hardaway Jr. for a contract like that on a 1-year deal, right? If he takes like a 1-year, $23 million contract in exchange for this sign. Like, I think that this is going to be an interesting offseason, because you're right. The guys that are available in free agency don't look super enticing. Malik Beasley may actually be one of, if not the best free agent available. So because of that, it really shifts focus onto the trades, right? And the Pistons could be in a good spot to absorb bad contracts if they're able to do like a 1-year deal for Tim Hardaway Jr. as a matching salary and sign and trade it. So it almost is a little bit of a reverse of how those sign and trades usually go, right? Usually the other team saying, I want that player, I'm willing to pay him this, and then now we have to work out trade compensation. Instead, could be going in the other direction, where the Pistons want a player that the other team wants to get rid of. So let's find salary for Tim Hardaway Jr. or Dennis Schroder or whoever to match that, and then make the money work on the trade. I like the flexibility that going the not cap space route gives in terms of that, the trade options that they could do. So that would be my choice here. Even though Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a very good player, I think I'd rather have him than Santi Aldama at this point. But I'm going non-cap space.
Yeah, me too. And there's some like mention of Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Collins in the chat too. Like,
Jaren Jackson Jr. would be a dream, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on like what Memphis does. There's so many teams who can go a bunch of different ways this offseason. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think there are plenty of teams who, like Memphis might be one of them, who would be interested in taking on expiring deals in exchange for getting off longer term money. And maybe depending on how good the player is, like you get some draft compensation as well, which the Pistons are now in a position to offer, conveying that pick that they owe this year. So, and the thing to me too is like, if you lose Schroder, Tim Hardaway, and Beasley, and then replace that trio with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I know there'd be like other signings, but I just think like talent-wise, you almost just have to, even though like you can definitely argue Nickeil Alexander-Walker is like the strongest player of that bunch, does more for the team on both sides of the floor. I just think the Pistons are in a position with like they need depth. Each of those players, to a different degree, give them depth, give them a key piece in their rotation. So even if you retain those guys, you sign Beasley, like, you're still in a position to compete, really, which I think is good, and it like maintains that flexibility, like you're saying, if there's a trade to work out with any of them.
Let's stick on the idea of depth here for a second. This is from Shags in the DBB comments. Says, with the postseason success of the Pacers and the Thunder, do you think the Pistons should focus on depth this summer instead of trading for an expensive star player?
Yeah, and this is a great question. Like, one of the things that has stuck out to me most, like watching the playoffs, is just how deep like some of these competing teams really are. Like, I'd even break this out to the Wolves, honestly. Like, I know the Thunder kind of easily took care of them, but as the Wolves got through the Lakers, they got through the Nuggets, and even to a degree in their series with the Thunder, even though it wasn't very competitive, like, something that stuck out to me with them is like how good their role guys were. Because even if there was a game where like Ant was getting taken out, not normal production, Julius Randle wasn't making shots. Like, there were games when Nickeil Alexander-Walker, speak of the devil, like, kept them in it. They have DiVincenzo. And then you take the same thing with the Pacers and the Thunder, who are having all this success. I mean, I think both of them are in a little bit different of scenarios with all like the trades that they were able to make out like a bandit on, honestly, even though you could have argued, I know the Halliburton Sabonis trade was like mostly talked about as a win-win for a while, but now I think that conversation is put to rest. Like, the Pistons didn't really have that, but I think the idea of like needing depth is real. I think we saw it to a degree with the Pistons too throughout their season. Like, Jaden Ivey goes down, that's a big piece of your team. Do you replace everything he gave you? No, but you bring in Dennis Schroder at the trade deadline, who helps like address that need for an additional ball handler. So I think depth is the way to go, especially if you're comparing it to an expensive star player. Like, we've seen those situations go wrong countless times, and like, you already have your star player in Cade. Like, will we need that someone to step up and be the number two that's already on the team, or go and acquire that player? Yes, but I don't think you should necessarily do it at the expense of depth. So, and I know like the DBB comments was on that side a little bit too. So I think this may be what the majority of like Pistons fans are thinking. And it's scary to a degree to go out and get a guy who's making a lot of money on a long-term deal. And I'm with them. I think you have to keep the roster at a competitive level, while also like maintaining a little bit of the flexibility so you can make some moves down the road.
I agree with you. So for fun, let's see if I can, try to articulate the opposite end of
You should have
this.
went first here.
Well, no, this is fine because I think I can understand the other side as well. But let's look at the Pacers and the Thunder, right? Let's look at the Timberwolves. The rosters not only have more depth than the Pistons do now, but they're just generally better than what the Pistons have at the moment too. Like, look at the Pacers, right? The Pacers are a pretty balanced team, I would say. However, you've got Halliburton, who's an incredible talent. Pascal Siakam has been awesome here in the playoffs. Miles Turner is a really, really good center, one of the best 3-and-D centers in the NBA, which is kind of a unicorn at the moment. Like, if you go and look around, count how many Miles Turners you can find, there are not a ton, right? The Thunder also happen to have someone similar in Chet Holmgren, but they've also got J-Dub, they got SGA. Wallace and Lou Dort are pretty incredible as defenders. Those are for my money, some of the best guard defenders in the NBA at the moment. Like, they have both of these teams, the Knicks too. We played the Knicks, Pistons played the Knicks. We know, right? We know that they have 4 all-star caliber players. We know, look at the Nuggets, right? The Nuggets have 2 all-star caliber players. And you look at the Pistons, and not only do they not have the depth that can match the Pacers going 10 deep, or the Thunder with the just seemingly endless bench that they have on any given night. So not only can the Pistons not match that, but they also can't match the top end talent. I think Cade can go up toe to toe with any of those guys any given night. Yes, even SGA. I think that's a battle. We've seen that before in the regular season, but he doesn't have anybody to really help him at that top end as well. So I could see that being the argument for, look, they need to get someone of that caliber. They need a Julius Randle. They need a Siakam or a Chet Holmgren or a J-Dub, right? In order to then allow those role players to get into those really specialized roles where it looks like they would excel. Because that's actually a point that I would bring up against Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That's a player that I really like. I think he's really good. But if you want to play the pause game there for him, say, hang on, maybe a red flag here. It's just his role is so specialized there in Minnesota. He's not going to get that wherever he goes next. I think Andrew Nembhard is in a similar way with the Pacers. Like, I don't know if he'd look as good on another roster if he didn't have the kind of support that he has around him. So maybe that's the alternative position here. Like, maybe if you want the Pistons to get this to this level, they need to get the upper end talent to then allow those role players to really thrive. That's not my position, but maybe that's the other side here.
Yeah, and the counter to that I think could even be like, if you do, say you have like, I know the money wouldn't work, but if you bring in like a Nickeil Alexander-Walker and you still have like Beasley and Schroder, even if like Nickeil Alexander-Walker isn't playing at the like, there's more expected of him in Detroit, and he's just like not meeting that level, then like you still have that depth. So like, and it's different if it's a star player, like a big money deal that you need to be at a certain level. But I think overall, just as much talent as you can get top to bottom, like it'll just help fill the need for injuries that always pop up if someone gets played out of the rotation certain wise. So yeah, it's a good point. There are like both sides to it for sure, and like pluses and minuses of both. But I just think like where the Pistons are and what they did over the past season, it just makes all the sense of the world to make your top priority like getting Cade that support and the right players around him. And then if there's the right deal eventually down the road to bring in a star, a number 2, whatever they be, then you have the assets to do it.
And I think the counter to that actually is like, look at the Pacers roster and tell me who they're overpaying. I can't really think of anyone. I mean, even for the Timberwolves,
Jarris Walker,
right? Like,
who they don't play, but he's a rookie contract guy.
Yeah, like, I mean, the misses
Johnny
for
Kirby.
these teams, are incredibly cheap. And so like Nickeil Alexander-Walker at $20 million in salary, if he gets beaten out of the rotation, that's a bit more of a problem than Nickeil Alexander-Walker right now at $4 million in salary, playing his way, either in or out of the rotation. At that cheap of a contract, you're like, who cares? That's only slightly less than Malik Beasley was getting last year, and that was maybe one of the best value contracts in the NBA, right? Such a low risk, high reward potential kind of move. So the good teams are really good because not only are they hitting on their star players and the decisions at the top of the roster, but they're also finding guys at $4, $5, $6 million that can step in, fill a role, and look really good when they're surrounded with really good supporting talent with them. So, I don't know, chicken or egg, I guess. I don't know how the Pistons would be best to play this. I think I'm with you. I'd rather play it slow, see if maybe Ron Holland still has that all-star type potential. Maybe Jaden Ivey can take another leap. Who knows? But make your plays from there instead of trying to jump the gun. But I suppose that would be the argument for going out and getting a legit number 2 or maybe a 1B type of guy next to Cade. Find a Siakam so that it elevates the rest of the roster. Either way, though, you can't miss.
Right. You have to be sure of it. And I don't know if there's a deal out there that you can be that certain of. I mean, you can't be absolutely certain, but you have to be extremely confident. And I don't know if there's that player, that deal out there right now, but I'm sure it'll come up at some point.
All right, so Matthew's asking, our Brazilian friend Matthew, he's asking, what about signing and trading Dennis Schroder and stuff for PJ Washington? So what do you think of PJ Washington as a target here?
I mean, I think he's a great player and would be the type of guy that would be great on the Pistons. He's also on a fairly team-friendly deal. He's making 15.5 next, or wait, no, I'm sorry. Has one more year left on his deal that's just at 14. So, I mean, yeah, I like it, but it's would Dallas do that? I know they need a ball handler with Kyrie going down. You somehow win the lottery and get Cooper Flag. It kind of speeds things up a bit. I don't know. I could see them being interested in Schroder if they I saw Chris Paul was a name floated out for them to help fill their guard spot. But if that doesn't happen, or if they just need more guard depth, I could see them certainly being interested in Schroder. But I just don't really think that they're necessarily interested in giving up PJ Washington. So the and stuff, I think, would probably be, they would want some sort of player, probably someone on an expiring deal that can help their roster out next year, and maybe a draft pick. And you bring Mateus or Matthew, sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, mentions their front court will be crowded. So yeah, definitely. I think the more likely thing is they're going to want to trade a center. Would the Pistons be interested in Daniel Gafford? I think they should be. But it just seems like PJ Washington is a guy that they want to keep, to me.
You jumped the gun, because my literal answer to this question when it got passed back over to me was going to be, could we do Daniel Gafford instead?
Yeah.
Because they got Davis, they got Lively. They actually have a very good depth. They're 4 deep at the 5 position. So Daniel Gafford would be great. I'd rather do that.
I wonder if you could get Lively, because he is a totally different player when he's not playing next to Luka Doncic. And I wonder if he's in Dallas may prefer to give up Daniel Gafford over Lively, but if the Pistons could do that, I think similar to how he was next to Luka, Cade would make Lively look a whole lot better, especially when Dallas, their star point guard, is down for the next year. So yeah, I'm with you. I think they'd be more likely to trade one of their centers, but you never know, especially because PJ is on expiring now.
Yeah, I know I'm in the minority on this, but I would rather have Daniel Gafford. I think
Gafford
that's a starting talent at the 5 position, and I don't understand why he hasn't been yet. He's really solid. Obviously, that creates a big logjam then for the 5 position in Detroit, because none of those 3 guys would be the new Paul Reed. So that would be something to figure out. But the talent upgrade there for Daniel Gafford for not all that much would be intriguing. Let's do a couple more here before we close it out. This is our guy Baked Over. It says, which one of these 3 players will not be on the roster after the trade deadline, or do you think all three will be? Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey.
I'll pick one who's like most likely to not be, just like because I could definitely see all three of them very well being on the roster post trade deadline. But so Isaiah Stewart is the most likely to be on the roster to me. He's on a team friendly deal, like signed that extension that just kicked in last season, I believe. So you have him at an affordable deal for a few more seasons, one of the best rim protectors in the league, found a great role, kind of like thriving in JB Bickerstaff's system. So then to me, the answer to this question comes down to which of the two, of Jalen Duren or Jaden Ivey, are you most confident that will get signed to an extension this offseason? Or will it be both of them? Or will it be neither? But to me, if I had to pick one, I think it would be Ivy, just because I think it could be the perfect mix of, like, he went down with this injury. He showed flashes of improvement before he went down. Still not a finished product, but still has like some upside. I could see Ivy accepting like not like a more than Isaiah Stewart's extension was, which is around like 15 a year. I think Ivy would probably be around 20 to 25. I could see both sides being interested in that. And like, honestly, maybe Duren's in a similar boat too. I just personally think Ivy is a little more likely to sign an extension. And again, maybe they both do. But just because, like, going through that reasoning, I could see Duren as the least likely. And also just because, like, we know teams around the league are interested in Isaiah Stewart. We know some teams would be interested in acquiring a guy like Jaden Ivey. But you know that there are certain teams out there that are in need of centers right now. So I could see the Pistons getting maybe an offer that they can't refuse for Duren, and just him being like the most likely one they'd be willing to give up. So in general, like, I think most likely they're probably all on the roster at the trade deadline next season. But if I had to pick one as the least likely, it's Duren to me.
So I'm going to have the same answer. I think the least likely to be on the roster.
I should have picked someone else. I knew it.
Well, no, you're fine. I'm gonna change it slightly though, because I just think that all three are not likely to be on the roster after the deadline. It's going to be two. I really think it's going to be two. I'm not 100% confident picking which the two are going to be. I'm with you. Isaiah Stewart's the one that's almost a guarantee. I mean, his contract is so valuable at this point. But so we're doing the extension question, right? This is essentially what this is. Which of Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey are likely to be extended? Is it both? Is it none? And then what are the numbers at? So let me just read off. I'm going to read 14 names to you. Okay. I looked up this earlier today. So there are exactly 7 centers and exactly 7 shooting guards per spot track that are earning between $20 and $30 million in salary for this most recent season. Presumably that's what an extension for both Ivy and Duren will probably land in the range of. Okay. So here are the centers. You got Isaiah Hartenstein, Brook Lopez, Nick Claxton, Clint Capella, Miles Turner, Nikola Vucevic, and Jarrett Allen. Here are the shooting guards. You've got Devin Vassell, RJ Barrett, Anthony Simons, Bruce Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso, and Josh Hart. So of that group, it's a little bit more risky to be given a center that salary range. I mean, if you're looking at that, you've got 4 guys that are on contracts their teams would likely wish they could get off of. We know at least 3 of those, being Claxton, Vucevic, and Lopez, were in trade rumors as recently as last offseason.
And Capella too.
And Capella too. Yeah. So that's four. So 4 of those 7s are recent trade rumors. Teams would like to get out of that contract, where that's not necessarily true with your shooting guards. If you're scoring, like Malik Monk barely misses the cut. He's at 19.5. He's about to go into the 20s. That's a mostly bench guard. So your risk there on giving Jaden Ivey that kind of deal is a lot lower. So as YouTube users saying, Nets are already regretting Nick Claxton. Absolutely they are. So I think at this point you're safer giving Jaden Ivey that type of contract than you are Jalen Duren. And for that reason, I'm going to guess that Jaden Ivey gets his extension and Jalen Duren does not. So with that being the case, you're probably not going to get more in return in the trade for a rookie coming on the end of their rookie deal than you would now, like literally now, the offseason before, rather than at the trade deadline. From the other team's perspective, you can get them in-house, get them in your offseason program, have them go through your training camp, and then have the entire season to figure out whether they're worth giving that restricted free agency contract to, rather than 20 games after the All-Star break. So I do think the timeline is shifted a little bit here with these guys to even before the trade deadline.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so tough. Just like these decisions that the front office has to make with Ivy and Duren specifically this offseason are super important. And I think if you sign like one to an extension and not the other, that becomes a sticky situation really quickly. So if that's like truly what they want to do, like a trade, an off-season trade, whether it's around the draft or whatever it is, makes all the sense in the world. Even though it might be surprising, it sort of makes sense.
Well, and this is just like a roster issue, right? I mean, not necessarily roster. This is just a salary cap issue, okay? Because Cade's already now on to his max rookie contract extension. So his cap number just jumped way up. It actually increased a little bit because he got that all NBA honors, right? And so if you look at the good teams around the NBA, like we just talked about, they've got 1 or 2 other dudes, really good players on big money contracts that are supporting their superstar. So if Cade's the superstar, then the Pistons basically over the next year or two have 1 or 2 big money contracts, like not quite as big as Cade, but close, big money contracts to hand out. So the question is, like, can you afford to miss on a contract for Jaden Ivey or Jalen Duren? Like, can you afford to overpay either one of those guys when you have Asar Thompson coming up in extension conversations next offseason? You're still trying to figure out what you have in Ron Holland. You still need to maintain flexibility, because if none of these guys are worth having on a big money deal and being that number 2 option, then you need to find another way to acquire them. So that's now looking at trades, that's looking at free agency, right? So like you can't afford to miss or overpay either of those 2 guys. The same is going to go for Asar Thompson next offseason. So that just makes the penny pinching a little bit more important, I think. And like you said, it's just a really difficult position to be in. I wish that we were, as Pistons fans, I wish the Pistons had this big leap last season rather than this season. Because last season, you're still looking at another year of Cade on his rookie contract. You still have another season to figure out Ivy and Duren. You're still a couple of years away from Asar Thompson needing an extension. Whereas now that Cade's on the post-rookie max and you're already looking at extensions for 2 of these guys and you got 2 more coming down the way, like you're just kind of out of time on figuring things out, which stinks.
Yeah, and it'll be nice, like, as not fun as it is to like not have a first round pick in a draft class, it'll be nice when like this current contract or this current class comes up for extensions and like the Pistons aren't staring down like a tough decision to make, because that's what they're in right now and is going to happen for a couple more years. And I mean, I could see, and Mateus brings up that like Ivy and Durant and even Asar weren't picks of the current front office. So who knows what they're thinking? Like if you look at those three, I think Asar is getting is valued the most highly right now. So if they're thinking that he's going to get an extension next season, it makes the Ivy and Durant questions a lot more difficult. And you might see some surprising moves, like maybe they take one or both of them to restricted free agency, but if they're not willing to sign an extension, like maybe there's a deal too, and some other team is willing to give up more than you would think just because they're willing to give that player a shot.
Just budget-wise, quickly before we go to our last question, like Asar Thompson being likely the most valued Trajan Langdon draft pick or acquisition at this point, that might be a saving grace for this team's future cap flexibility, because defense first guys, and not just defense first, but like significantly defense first guys like Asar Thompson is, they don't get paid big time max contract deals. They don't. So
that's
if Asar Thompson's in the low 20s or maybe even high teens, like I don't know, maybe that's your saving grace. If you have to overpay, let's say Jaden Ivey, you overpay him roughly $6 million, but you're getting more than that in savings for the value Asar Thompson's providing. Maybe there's your victory that you can afford to do it. But I don't know, that assumes that Asar doesn't take a leap here offensively, which who knows, maybe he can. So let's end on this one. We did get a question from Sports and All too that we're asking about expectations for next season. I think we pushed that a little bit to maybe when we get closer to the draft and start getting a better idea of where this team's going to shake out. But this is Spurs fan Steve says, what is the most Detroit would and or should be willing to give up for Kevin Durant?
I mean, to me, honestly, it's just like expiring contracts. Like I think if you're the Pistons and acquiring a player who makes as much as KD and is at that caliber, like Tobias is going to be included in that deal. 26 million right there. Whatever, I would need to figure out like what the Suns are even able to do with like their cap and tax situation. And like, YouTube user brings it up, like salary matching in seconds. I think that's kind of where I'm at. I wonder, like, I don't know. It's just such a tough situation with KD and the Suns because I can't see him getting traded and the Suns not getting some sort of first round pick in return. I don't think the Pistons want to give up their whole cupboard of draft capital for KD, but I kind of feel like you'd have to give at least one first, maybe even two. And I don't really think that the team is willing to do that. And would I love to have Kevin Durant? Like, sure, but I think some other teams have better packages, I guess, that they'd be willing to give up. Like Houston is one that they just have a ton of players and they'd be willing to give up draft picks too. I mean, I don't really think Oklahoma City would want to be interested in that. Maybe they would. But the Pistons in general, I just think they wouldn't be able to put together like the type of package the Suns would want. So to me, I'm kind of with YouTube user, like match the salaries, throw in some second round picks, or if you have to get in first round territory, like if the Suns are just like, we need one first round pick or the deal's dead, I'd give up like a lottery protected first, maybe.
This is so weird to say because of the gap between these two players, but man, is Tobias Harris really a sticking point for me here. Like once you get into that contract range over about $35 million in salary, the Pistons almost have to include Tobias Harris unless that other team has cap space in order to orchestrate that kind of Tim Hardaway Jr. sign and
which
trade
no
deal
one does.
right, which no one really does. So I just don't want to lose Tobias Harris. It feels like from the outside looking in that the impact he specifically had on the locker room, on these young players to help instill what JB Bickerstaff wanted, to help instill what Cade Cunningham wanted. I would be really worried about losing that, even for the quality of player like Kevin Durant. So, like, if there were a way to find matching salary without giving up Tobias Harris or Isaiah Stewart for that matter, because Kevin Durant next season is going to be at $54 million. Tobias Harris is 26, Stu's 15. That only gets you to 40. You probably have to stick Fontecchio on. Like at that point, is it really, because you also probably, like you said, you got to do a pick, maybe a few seconds. Like I think I'm just out when the contract gets that big. This past year's trade deadline was really the last chance the Pistons had to take on a really big deal without giving up a guy like Harris or Stewart, because you had Tim Hardaway Jr. making $23 million, right? So they could have been able to finagle at that point, like Tim Hardaway Jr. at that salary and Simone Fontecchio around 10. And, you could get up to a big number without losing those guys. But now they can't. Their hands are tied a little bit. And I love Kevin Durant. He's a Hall of Famer. He's possibly the best offensive player to ever play the game of basketball. He's still really, really good. He would be an incredible addition to this team. I'm not willing to give up Tobias Harris and Isaiah Stewart, so I'm just out.
That's fair. I mean, I think I wouldn't be held at like Tobias if that's like it's just kind of like what you have to do. But I'm with you. Bringing in a player just at that level is it takes a lot, and I don't know if that's really where the team is. I mean, if we're talking about Giannis, maybe I change my tune here, or even like I'm not really sold on like the whole Booker idea, and I don't really even think Phoenix would trade him, but maybe it would be a little different there. But yeah, it's just like you're acquiring a guy in Kevin Durant who's making like just under 55 million last year of his deal. Like, what do you do after next season? So it's just kind of like unlikely to me, even though like KD is probably going to get traded. I just don't think it's going to be here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, if it's going to be that big of a package, which it's going to have to be for someone making nearly that kind of money, then, for, like you said, for Giannis, okay, sure, let's talk. I don't think the Pistons have a competitive enough trade package for that. But if for some reason the Bucks have just got incredible interest in like Jalen Duren and multiple first round picks, then okay, like by all means, let's go down that path. They wouldn't. They can do a lot better than that. Same with Jaden Ivey or Asar Thomas. Like all of these guys are interesting, but I think the Bucks could get better from, like you said, Houston, OKC, all these guys. So KD, like if KD was 32, maybe, but not right now. Not right now.
Yeah. I'm with you. It just doesn't make sense where the team is.
Yeah, like we've been saying all episode, really, like focus on maintaining the level of talent that's on the roster so that the young guys taking a step forward actually like elevates you and beyond what you were last year, and that you don't take a step back. And then one of Ivy and Duren, like I feel like they need to make a decision now. You kind of feel like maybe they could take it into the deadline or into restricted free agency. That's fine too. Regardless, we both agree. So they got to make a choice, and that's going to be a really difficult thing to do. So interesting times as we come up closer to the draft. You're right. If there's any moves that are going to get made it's probably right around draft night. So as we continue to approach that and get further and further into the offseason, hear a little bit more about what the Pistons and other teams are going to be interested in doing. Like it just came out the other day that maybe the Raptors are open to moving RJ Barrett. That's maybe interesting. I don't know. Right. So like, this is all going to get really, really intriguing from a Pistons perspective over the next month or so.
Yeah, and free agency starts a few days after the draft, so we're gonna find out soon here. I mean, it's a super interesting offseason in Detroit. I think a lot of teams have interesting off seasons, and the Pistons might even be able to capitalize on some of those tough decisions like other teams have to make too. So it'll be fun, even that we're in like the slow period right now.
All right, so who you got? Knicks or Pacers? We've done this before, but it just got more interesting because they're about to go into a game 6.
Yeah, I think I still have the Pacers. I think they're going to close it out in 6. And then I think the final, if it's in Indiana, OKC, I think that will be a great series. I just think OKC has the edge. They're playing too good right now. They're too deep. The Pacers are deep too, but I just think they have the best player in the series. They have the MVP now, and they have the better roster too. But I'd love to see that series go like 7 games.
Yeah, I'd like to see it go 7. I don't think it will.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd say is the Pacers are more nuggetsy in terms of their play style than the Knicks are. So maybe they're a slightly better matchup than the Knicks are for the Thunder, but yeah, man, with how the Thunder just dismantled a really strong Timberwolves team coming off two really strong series for them. It's OKC in 5 would be great, just to extend the basketball a little bit.
Yeah. I'll give Indiana a little, like, I think they get at least 2 games if it's Indiana OKC. But maybe
I love the Pacers. I'm scared if they get through. 6 would be great. That would be great.
That's very fair. And like you just said, Knicks Pacers, when you get to 6, anything can happen. Maybe you'll go to 7. So I don't think the Knicks will be able to do it. But you never know.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll call it there. We gave you guys a little bit extra this week since we missed last week. We're actually probably coming up on a hard out that I know Blake had. And you and I, we did not think we'd be getting this far. So I appreciate all the questions as always, and I'll hand it over to you to close it out.
Yeah, shout out to everyone for joining us on a Friday night. If you're joining us live, reminder, you can call our voice line to ask a question, hear your voice on the show. We did get a voicemail from Andy that we didn't get to today, so we're going to save that for next week. Shout out to you, Andy, for using the voice line. Anyone can call that number, ask a question. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.